Come to 2 Corinthians 6, the first two verses. But remember, as I mentioned yesterday, this really is all flowing together. In other words, as this is taking place, chapter 6 here is not a whole nother thought. It continues on, basically all the way up to verse 13. Continues on with what Paul has just talked about, the ministry of reconciliation, the message of reconciliation, ultimately in Jesus Christ, who became sin, was made sin on our behalf. And with all of that having been said, this is what he does in reconciling us to God. So, with this grace that's given, something that's blessed with us, we find here, Paul says, now working together with him then. Now, as Paul's talking to, as he's saying, this is what I'm doing. I am working together with God. Doesn't mean he's put himself on God's, on even par with God. No. But in this case here, he is a co-worker with God. Of course, God's in charge, working through Paul. We know all of that. Yet they are working together. And so the Lord is working through him. So he's saying, working together with him. And when we share the word, when we work together in ministry, we are truly working with God to share, to tell, to proclaim, to grow for one another. Working with him, as I'm working with God, Paul says, we appeal to you not to receive the grace of God in vain. They're not saying you haven't received the grace of God. Paul is not saying you're outside of grace, not even close. So what is Paul saying? Paul is saying this has been given. And the words here, receive, passive tense. This has been given by God, active. Passive, we have received. God has done, blessed, and it is now ours, not because I got it, because God came and it was now received. And now that I have it, I can choose to stay with it or reject it. I do have that opportunity, that choice. Nevertheless, we have received grace. And having received grace, in other words, it's given. We have mercy from our Lord. Do not receive it in vain. In other words, an incredible gift that's given. Use it. Use it around us. Don't let it be, other words, don't let it be, having received it, don't be empty in your life. Having received it, don't go around with no purpose. Purpose is we are Christians and we follow in his word in the ministry that he's given to us of reconciliation. It's not the ministry of reconciliation to the pastors. He's talking to Corinthians, this ministry that's given to you. And especially he's talking against the false prophets who are not part of that. Don't receive it and take it lightly. The blessings that are given, the grace that is given, Christ became sin, was made sin. Christ did not have sin carry it on a backpack. Sin became part of who Jesus was, Son of Man, Son of God. So he took it upon him, took it as part of him. He was made sin on our behalf. Knowing how incredible that is, don't let it be empty, light, or vain. For he says, now the quote here, Isaiah 49, verse 8, in a favorable time I listened to you, in a day of salvation I have helped you. And he's looking very much here, Isaiah in the prophecy, going back to Leviticus 25, so kind of bang to bang, with the year of Jubilee. In the year of Jubilee, everything is returned. Isaiah is saying it will happen. Looking forward, especially after Babylon. Now that Babylon, it'll be 70 years. However, it will be returned and you will be brought back in a favorable time, in a day of salvation, the year of Jubilee. You are brought back. Behold, now Paul's saying that is incredible. Behold, right now is the favorable time. Now is the day of salvation. Now it has been given. And in his mercy, we have received that. That's given to us now and forevermore. But it is given now as God's people. And we are ambassadors to bring what we now have to those that don't. Because we know how much they, just like us, needed, and will need that grace forevermore. In his name,